All right, everyone, welcome back. This is the second of hopefully 3 videos that we're doing that are kind of extra content we didn't get to cover in our Girl Develop in Philadelphia Intro to PHP and MySQL class that we did back in June. So what we're going to be covering today is really user authentications, the basic principles of authenticating a user, creating a user account, and then having that user log in with a username and password to be able to access certain parts of our application. So we're going to be creating 2 new pages today and 1 new script, or 2 new scripts rather, to process the input of those pages. And then we're going to be modifying some of our other pages to check and see whether we have an authenticated user with us visiting our pages. And if we don't, we're going to take steps to kind of boot them off of certain pages and protect things like our company insert form and our product insert form and our editing form and stuff like that. So visitors are free to browse our application, but other parts of it that we've created so far, we'll be able to somewhat securely keep nosy, unregistered folks out. All right. So we're going to be going over the basic principles of that and controlling who can see, edit, and insert new information. And one of the first things we're going to be doing is modifying our database. So we have a coffee database, which I have open in PHP We're going to create a new MySQL database named admin, and then we're going to be using user ID, username, and password as our fields there. So we're going to be doing that first. So I have that open here, and I've already punched in user ID, username, and password. We're going to be using an integer for our user ID and having it as our primary key that auto increments. And so that's all set to go there. Our username is just going to be varchar type, variable character. We're going to let that be 25 characters long. We shouldn't have really long usernames. And then our password, we're just going to allow that to be a varchar as well and have that be 50 characters in length. And so that's about all the settings that we have in our admin table here as part of our coffee database. I'm going to go ahead and click Save and let it create that. So now we have a third table as part of our coffee database. And if I click through, it's got nothing in it at the moment. That's okay. We're going to write a script that's going to handle that, and we're going to link to it from here. So I already have our application open in Coda like I did before. This is where we left off from the last video, where we were templatizing everything, and that's going to make it easy for us to open up header.inc.php and create a new link here, because what we want to do first is put together a page where we can put a form and users can create a new account. Okay, and obviously this is not the most secure thing in the world, so this is not like a real world example, but it's good enough for us right now. We're going to link to create account.php, and I'm going to just remove this right now and say nav. And we're going to call the link register account. Okay, and so now if we go back over here, we should have a new link that's called register account. That's not going to go anywhere right now, but what we can do is maybe copy our search.php file, because that was a pretty close to what we'd like this one to be. So we'll just duplicate that and call it create account.php. So if we open it up, here's what we have inside here, and we're just going to go ahead and strip all of the search business out of here because we just are not in need of it right at the moment. We have an empty div of class content. We'll just change the title to create account, and that's where we'll get started. So we have an empty page. Great. So our user registration page, which if you want to, you can find the finished version here on Girl Develop It, on GitHub. So I link through to the finished version here from the slide each time we're doing something like this. So just for my own benefit, I'm going to keep these open a little bit. But what we want on here is pretty simple. We want a form that is going to link to create account result.php. So we're just going to go ahead and put that in here. First off, a form tag with an action of create account result.php. So we'll have to make that script. And then the other thing that we have is a method of post, which for those of you with a sharp eye will notice that's a little bit different than some of the other form methods that we've used so far. So if you don't know what is going on there yet, we will have an opportunity to kind of inspect that and see what's different about that than post. Okay, so we want an input for the username, we want an input for the password, and we also want an input for the actual submission of the form. So I'll just go ahead and say type of submit. Here it's a type of text, and here it's a type of password. So that again is a different input that we haven't used so far yet. So now if I hit save, we should have something to look at in our coffee application, and we do. Maybe we'll take a little bit of time to put some labels in here, and maybe that'll help us out a little bit too. Okay, so username, password, and I'll just say value equals register here. And that should make the button look a little bit nicer. Okay, username, password. And so obviously this, we're already familiar with the text inputs. The password input is a little bit different because we can type here and it's going to obscure the characters from view because it is an input of type password. So that's nice to have. And yeah, so now we have our form, and if we hit register here, it's going to go nowhere because we don't have create account result .php yet, but we will create it in a second. But first, let's look at what is going on here that is different about this form than some of the other forms that we've created. And I'm actually going to put a little break tag in here because this is messing with me a little bit. No, much nicer. Okay, so again, I have username of Tommy John and a password of I'm going to use ABC123ABC. When I click register here, you'll notice that unlike some of the other forms where we use the get method on our forms, we don't have the value of the parameters of the things that we are passing over to this next script in the URL. We usually have ampersand or question mark username equals. In fact, why don't we go ahead and do something here? Let's add a name here to each one of these, username, and a name of password. And let's change this to get really quick so you can just kind of see what this used to behave like. So we'll real quick refresh the page here, and now we will say Tommy John and ABC ABC123. Now I click register, and okay, so this is the kind of thing we're trying not to have happen when we have the method of post instead of the method of get. That means we don't have this vulnerable information, especially this, in the URL. That's really important because then it doesn't appear in logs, it doesn't appear in web histories and stuff like that. If it's in a post, then I'll show you where it shows up, but we'll still be able to grab it with the create account result.php page we're going to have. So let's go ahead and change that back to post. I'll show you where we can inspect that. And then we'll move on to create account result.php. Okay, so ABC123, ABC. And if I click register now, again, it doesn't show up in create account result. But if I come over here to the network tab, then I can see that, even though this is giving me a 404 not found, we were talking about HTTP headers a couple of weeks ago in class, and you can see here that along with the request headers, some form data was submitted, and here are the, so this is not really visible to users in the same manner as the URL would be, but here's our form data being passed along as posted data instead of as a get, and so it's not showing up in the URL. All right, so with that, let's back up a little bit. We have our create account page, which is great because now that we have this, we're probably going to reuse this form to repurpose it as a login page at some point. But for right now, we need to handle what's going on in create account result.php. So now that we're all finished here, then we can come on over here to check out what is happening in here. So let's first go ahead and create this file. This needs to be called create account result.php. Okay. And like a lot of our other PHP scripts, we start with this open and close tag. This is going to be a page where people land. So not only are we using the include of db.inc.php, we're also including the header and the footer. So we're just going to dump those in there right now. Oh. Okay. So really quick, why don't we just grab the username and start doing something with that. This is very similar syntax to what we were using before. If you were grabbing a parameter from the URL, we were using get. And of course, that's all using MySQL real escape string as usual, and the link that's being established for us in db.inc.php. But instead, what we're doing is we're grabbing the post. Okay, so if I could just echo out username as a little proof of concept here. If we come back here and hit register, now we're being dumped out. Oh, and I forgot my div class content, so this is bumping up all the way over there. But you can see as proof of concept, that's where that how that is being grabbed from this form data that's being passed over in this request to create account result.php. Okay. So let me actually go ahead and do this. Okay. Now, obviously we don't want to echo this out onto the page. We don't want to echo out the username and the password. What we do want to do is assemble our SQL statement, which we've done before, which is this insert into, and obviously we are going to be punching in a username and a password keyword. So I'm just going to grab this stuff and put it in here. Okay, and password is really similar to what we were doing with username, so I'm just going to copy that because we're grabbing it the same way from our post data. Okay, so here's our SQL statement. Insert into admin, which is the table that we just created over here. Set password equal to this password keyword, and username equal to this username. And it's going to run that query, and if there's a problem, it'll just echo out the error and exit. Okay, but if there's not an error, what we'd like to do down here is just echo out congratulations, and maybe we'll throw in the username, echo username. Your account has been created. Okay. So at this point in time, we're establishing our connection to the database. We are bringing in the header and all the navbar stuff. We're grabbing our form data using the post instead of the get keyword here. All right. We're creating our SQL statement and firing it. And then if there was not a problem, the page won't exit. We'll get down to this point and we'll say, congratulations, and we're using the username that was passed in. Your account has been created. And we're not going to redirect people anywhere else. They can go wherever they want after that. Okay, so we're saved. So why don't we go back here to register account now. And like before, I'm going to punch in Tommy John as my username. Let's say Tommy John 1. And ABC123 ABC, which is everything. It's the password I use for all my bank accounts and PayPal and all that stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and click register, and it'll tell us, congratulations, Tommy John 1, your account has been created. I feel real good about myself. I finally signed up for my coffee website. Now I've got a user account. I really can't do anything with it yet, but I do have one. And if I come over here to our admin table and do a refresh, I'll see that I have one user account here, Tommy John 1, with the password of ABC123. Let's do it again real quick so we can see the auto increment in action. All right, Tommy John 2, ABC123 ABC, and register. And just like before, we have a success, and user number 2 is going to be Tommy John 2. Great. Okay, so you may have noticed that we haven't copied everything over from our create account result script that we have up on GitHub. And we can go ahead and cover that right now before we actually get to like logging people in, because what we want to do is the next step, create another form where people will put in a username and a password, and we'll establish a session based on whether there is a username and password match available in the admin database, or in the admin table rather. But one of the problems that we are seeing right here is that this password is living inside our MySQL database as plain text, and that is a huge, huge security problem, because if anybody were to get a copy of the SQL database somehow through an exploit or something like that, there would be no effort required whatsoever to grabbing your users' passwords, matching them up with usernames and email addresses, and just feeling free to go ahead and use those in other places. People do share their passwords between systems. I was joking about earlier having it shared by my bank password, but obviously that's not something where you want to allow this to happen. This is a security violation, or it's just a security no-no, right? So what we're actually going to do here is not a whole lot better, but it is something at least to make it not appear in plain text, and that is this function that's provided to us called MD5. And I'll link to it from the course website, but there's an explanation about how to use it here on the php.net website, which takes a string like apple, okay, and if you apply MD5 to that string, it ends up looking something like that. Okay, so really what it is a really quick way of giving you a jumbled hash of a string, which is what we want to have happen. We want ABC123 to appear as something different and longer in our database, so that users who exploit and maybe get a copy of the database might not be able to look at what's going on there and easily guess as what's in there. So let's go ahead and steal this line and put it in here. Okay. Password needs to be an MD5 of password. And the second parameter here is for raw output of false. So we don't want the raw output. Okay. So now, if I go ahead and save and come back to our register account page, my password manager is bugging me. Go away. All right, Tommy John 3. Again, ABC 123 ABC. And I click register. Now appears in our database as okay, something much more jumbled. Okay, so this series of characters, numbers, and letters is supposed to represent ABC123 ABC as a hash. So it's more secure. It's not a whole lot more secure. And if you want more information about why not and what to use instead, there's information here that I'll also link to about why not MD5, or, you know, there's another hashing function called SHA-1. Why are they not suitable for passwords? So, for example, if you wanted to encrypt something that wasn't a password, such as maybe you wanted to store social security numbers of patients inside your application somewhere, maybe MD5 and SHA-1 would be acceptable. Okay, like the one we're using right now. But if you are looking for passwords and you really want to lock it down, you could either follow the instructions here, or you could. This is an area where it would be useful to dig in and look at what a PHP framework would provide to you. In other words, the hard work of creating a secure application and keeping it secure is done by the community of a PHP framework, like Cake PHP or CodeIgniter or Laravel or some of those, where they can provide recommendations. Or if you're doing user authentication in your application, here's how it ought to be done, rather than what's being given to us by the PHP .NET website here, which is, for the most part, you know, why don't you avoid doing things this way instead of recommendations about how to do things. Here we're being given like a recommendation about how not to do something. So, you know, we'll look at PHP frameworks in hopefully the next video as part of our advanced PHP, where do I go from here type video. But for right now, MD5 is fine, and we're going to leave it like that. And really all that's doing for us is the bare minimum of what we can do to keep our passwords from being stored as plain unencrypted strings inside of our database here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete these two. So now Tommy John 3 is our only user. Okay, so what's the next step here? Well, the next step is we need to provide our users with a way to log in, right? And to do that, really what we all ought to do is just copy our create account.php page. And what were we calling that? Let's come over to our keynote and find out. So login form.php, that's going to send people to login.php. So you can see it's the same form, just different action and a different value for our submit. So let's change this to login. Let's change this action to login.php. Okay. So now, and maybe we ought to just go into our header again and add another link. Okay, cool. So now we have a login. We have a link to a, oh, whoops, linking to the wrong thing here. Let's go to login form.php. Okay, so we have our login page here with, again, a username and password in field, and that password field is the type password, so we have our little dots here, or asterisks, instead of characters. We have, so the goal here, really, and it's simple when you think about it, is we're doing the same thing as we were doing with our create account page, except we're going to be searching or checking to see if there's any users in this database that also have the password that we have here. And so to do that, first thing we really need to do is create login.php. That same thing as a create user count is going to grab that post data for us to use. So we can just copy all of this in create account result and create login.php. Okay, login.php is doing a couple things. First of all, I don't think we're going to be staying on login.php. We want to have a couple things happen. But for right now, I'm just going to leave this right here, okay? We're not going to be sticking around here long. And this is not the SQL statement that we want to have happen. So I'm going to comment this out for right now. And I'm not going to worry about the content. Goodbye. And we'll leave our footer in here. So now, if we log in here, there we go. We arrive at login, but nothing's really happening yet. There's no queries or anything like that. So what do we want to have happen with login.php? Okay, so we don't want to stay there. We're going to get rid of our header and our footer. But here's the gist of it. We're already collecting username and password from our post keyword here. And we are going to be using MD5 to create that hashed version of what is passed in plain text. So ABC123 becomes that long string of characters. Our SQL statement that we want to fire is select user ID from admin where username and password are a match. Okay, so if we were not doing MD5 here, it would not find a match. And similar to that, if we don't have a match between username and password, or if the username doesn't exist in the system, it's going to turn up nothing. So let's go ahead and create that SQL statement really quick. And we'll just echo out on the page we already have if there's a match or not. We have some quotes in here that will help us. Okay. So let's collect everything in recording and just print that out. So we are going to take our result keyword here. And recording is going to be set to MySQL fetch array of result. Okay, so why don't we print our recording really quick and see what that gets us. That's all we want to do right now is print our recording. And why don't we actually take that into our content area here. Get rid of this. Again, this is not where we want to land, so we're going to do something else in a minute. But right now we just want to see, is there a match? That's all. Oops. Syntax error. I forgot to have the periods in here for concatenation, I think. Okay, sorry about that. We got to figure out what was going on there. We were having a problem with, and this is where echoing out the actual SQL statement and trying it in PHP worked well for us. We were having a problem where not having these quotes around these keywords that we were concatenating together was giving us a problem, and the SQL statement, it thought that Tommy John 3, which was being placed in here, was a field name in the database that it was trying to search on. And so, you know, echoing out the SQL statement and having that there was helpful. So now what we have happening is we are putting our SQL statement together here on line 13. We are querying the database with the link that's provided to us by our db.inc.php and our SQL statement. And then we are creating an array here using MySQL fetch array and the result of this being fired here. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm printing the recording down here and just printing out the entire array with print R inside of content. And if I save now and come back over here, you can see where I've already done that. So really quick, let me go back to our login page and let's try a couple logins. So now if I log in as Tommy John 4, ABC 123 ABC, the query is going to fail. There is no such user. So we'll do stuff in a minute to handle that. If I do Tommy John 3 and the incorrect password, so 123123, again, nothing. But if I do the correct password, Tommy John 3, ABC 123 ABC, my go-to bank password, now we're being given an array with a user ID key that we can use. We're basically just saying if user ID is has a value here, then we can continue and do a couple things to start our session. Okay, so here's our user ID. All right, and basically what we're saying is if user ID is 0, whoops. Oh, yeah, it'd help if that were inside the quotes. All right, go away, 1Password. Okay, so here we're going to start a session, and if we do a login with a bogus password or bogus username, we're being told to go away. Or something more useful would be to take people back to login.php. So let's take care of that first. Let's be nice, and we'll say, actually, let's bring this all down into our content area here real quick. Okay, so this should be nice because now we'll log in as Tommy John 5 ABC. It's not going to find a match. It's going to take us here, and it'll say try logging in again. That's very nice. Okay, but what do we want to have happen if we have a successful login? Well, there's a couple things that we would like to have happen, and if you go over to the finished area right here, you'll see that. Okay, again, we got this if statement here saying if user ID is greater than 0. If user ID is greater than 0, we don't want to stick around here. We want to go to location product show.php. But in order to signify to all of our other pages that we are logged in here, we can store things in what are called session variables, and those are illustrated right here. Session variables are variables that are available to your script, and you have to use session start here. And again, if you're using a framework, this is something that's available to you like kind of automatically. But if you're using a session variable, I can put this and I can declare this session logged in here and then get that value on another page. Okay, I can also unset the value here like this. Okay, so first of all, why don't we, as a proof of concept, take things to session start, and we're just going to steal session of logged in equals true. Okay, and then we're going to put that header in there with the location of product show.php, meaning a couple different things. If we come to this page, we fire this SQL looking for a user, and we find a match, user ID is greater than 0, then our session is going to begin. We can declare session variables like logged in and grab them later. And then we are going to shuttle somebody over to product show.php. Let's open product show.php real quick too. Okay. Even though we don't need it on here, what we can do is actually, why don't we put it at the bottom of the page here. If, and I'll say is set. And we used is set the other day. Session logged in, echo your well, gotta escape that. Logged in right now. Okay, so if this was successful, then it'll pick up that session logged in was set earlier here, okay? And it will echo you're logged in right now. So let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to log in with Tommy John 3, I think, ABC 1 2 3 ABC, and is looking at the MD5 version of that password and saying, I have a match. It has brought us to productshow.php, and it is not doing what I thought it would do down here at the bottom. How come? What did I do wrong? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're going to put session start in our header.php, meaning it's going to be looking for those session variable. I guess that it needs that not only to set those and start the session, but it needs to start the session on every page in order to have session variables available to it. Okay, and so by the same token, we could have a log out page that uses unset and stuff like that. But what we want to be able to know how to do is boot people. Okay, so we could do that in a couple different places. We could do it from each individual script, or, and in fact, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We want to boot people now that we can have the ability to start a session on each page. We can access the logged in session variable that we have here, okay, using code like this. All right, so let's actually take that and do the inverse of that, which means going to a page like, I don't know, let's protect something like company insert. So we want people to insert companies. So what we can do here is, if session logged in is not set, we can put in a header again. It says product show.php. All right, and so a couple things. We need to be able to unset this really quick, so I'm going to put that in here and actually steal that code from GitHub. I'm just going to start our session and unset logged in, like we have going on in the example. Okay, so now if we log in, and our way of logging out and unsetting logged in will be to log in incorrectly. I know that's kind of backwards and everything like that, but that's okay. Okay, so we are starting our session here in header.inc.php, and we come over to company insert.php, and we say, if this session variable isn't there, then we're going to bounce people out to product show.php. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's insert product here. We already have a session variable. It allows us in. Now let's go to login, and I'm going to log in with a bogus username, okay? And this time, what is going on here? Maybe we don't need session start now that we are using it in header PHP. So let's do that. Okay. All right. So now if we go to insert company, it has taken us to product show. So it's effectively protecting this page. We could protect insert product. So go to productinsert.php and take this business over there too. So where is that company insert? We can protect product insert the same way. And what's another one? We can protect product edit. Okay, so here's the end result. If we go to insert a company, it says nope. If we go to insert a product, it tells us no. If we go to edit this product, it tells us no. Okay, and we could also say, don't allow it to delete this product. You have this session variable that basically says I'm logged in right now, and we're checking for the presence of it. But you can use it to do more than just set the header and kick people out. You can use it to control the visibility of these things. So if we wanted to, we could take this code and go to header.inc.php, and over here we can say really we want to say if logged in is present. If this is present, then we do want insert product to show. So how am I trying to put this together here? Let's do it this way. This will keep it cleaner. And same thing with, if we wanted to have a log out page down here, you could use this again. But we're just going to use this to say if you're logged out and you don't have a session, this is what you can see. Search, show product, show company, search products, and register account or log in. Now if we go to log in and log in with a legit password and username, now the nav bar should open back up again, and it does. So we have the ability to go to in the insert product form again and the insert company form once again. So that is just the basics of establishing a session and storing session variables and keeping user authentication credentials in a table in MySQL. Okay, so we've kind of gone over the pros and cons of using stuff like MD5, and so that's suitable for this presentation, but if you want to learn more about it, I'll post the link about what you ought to use instead, and we'll also look at PHP frameworks and what they bring to the table for things like user authentication in our next video. Okay. The finished version of this code, or something like it really, so it's not exactly the same, is up on GitHub. So you can link to it from the keynote presentations which we've provided up on the Lore website. And like I said at the beginning of the last class, if you go to the Lore website, I have the starter repository here in the Girl Develop It Intro PHP MySQL. We've updated this. So this starter repository should get you up to speed for the last video with the includes and templatizing everything. So you might want to do that video first and then come back and do this video with user authentication. Sorry, I'm saying that at the very end here, but that's what's available to you there. And we'll post information about the password hashing, and again, we will come back together and do a live Q&A of some kind with Google Hangouts if anybody has any questions. You should also feel free to email me at tjnicolaitis@gmail.com if you are running into any problems. Okay. Hope this video was informative. Hope I didn't mess it up too much there in the middle. We'll see how that goes. And thanks for your interest in this stuff. Let me know if there's anything that I or any of the TAs can do to help.